Oh my goodness. I can't believe how tired I was last night after the first day of the Wild Wonder Nature Journaling Conference. I had just enough energy after I ate some dark chocolate. Oops, I just dropped some on the floor. I had enough energy, barely enough energy after I ate some dark chocolate to do a live show last night to give you a little bit of a recap of the first day of the Wild Wonder Conference. But wait, you might be asking, wait, Wild Wonder doesn't start until Wednesday. Even with the time zone confusion, don't worry, you're not that confused. The first 2 days are the educator conference. So there were actually two separate events, even though they're connected by a thread of nature journaling. And I decided I was going to do all of them. Today was amazing. The second day, John Muir Laws taught a bunch of classes. He must be tired right now, except I know he has unextinguishable levels of energy. So anyways, it was an amazing day. But the crazy thing is last night during the keynote, I got to the last page in my nature journal and I still need to leave room here for the index. I almost didn't leave enough room for the index because there was so much great information yesterday. Maybe you saw that video. I did it just live on Facebook as an experiment. I thought maybe more people would be able to see it that way. Anyways, I'll just quickly go through some of the pages. There were also field exercises, so we got to do some nature journaling in the field, but there was definitely plenty of great stuff to take notes on, and I'm trying to get better at sketchnoting because, as you know, Mike Rhoda, I can't remember how his last name is pronounced, is going to be at this conference as one of the keynote speakers, I believe, and also a teacher. So he is one of the main sketchnoting teachers. I have one of his books right here. I've read his first book and done it. It's a great book, and it will get you started in sketchnoting, which is basically the same as nature journaling. If you're nature journaling while someone is giving a talk or you're watching a Zoom, it's basically like sketchnoting. So I did that a bunch yesterday, filled up all these pages, and right now I'm going to show you my pages from today because it was an awesome day. And for those of you who were there, you're probably I had to get this chalk off the ground. For those of you who are there, you're probably not watching this video right now because you're so tired from all the nature journaling content. But for everybody else, this video will give you an idea of what you missed. So right now I'm going to switch cameras to my document camera so you can see some of my journal pages from today. All right, so whoa, that is the keynote. I shouldn't start with the keynote. So these are all pages that I filled just today. The first class began at 8:30 in the morning. That's right. So it's about 8:13 right now. So I've basically been doing nature journal classes and learning nature journaling and practicing nature journaling for the last 12 hours. So one of the main things that we talked about today was curiosity and question asking. But Jack also talked a lot about the next generation science standards and the cross-cutting concepts. So even for people who aren't educators or working within the school systems, these concepts are really important and they can provide a scaffolding for the questions that you ask in your nature journaling and the entire direction that your nature journaling follows when you're in the field. These categories from the cross-cutting concepts, he has these really cool drawings on his website with that symbolize each one of these. And there are 7 cross-cutting concepts. He also mentions the equivalent versions from the International Baccalaureate School, which uses similar categories, and these will help you ask questions. And if you remember my video, Taxonomy of Questions, I talked about I sort of brainstormed some different ways to categorize questions, and you can see that a lot of these are similar to the ones in cross-cutting concepts and the International Baccalaureate School questions. So that was really fun, just kind of going over these again, because this is the kind of stuff that doesn't stick in your brain immediately. One cool takeaway here was that curiosity improves overall cognition. So by asking questions, even if the questions aren't the most important thing you're doing, by being curious and asking questions, your brain is going to work better. Around 9:15, we had our chance to go into the field with a prompt. And the prompt was to practice, here's sort of the layout of how he recommended doing it, is do your sort of, I notice, I wonder, it reminds me of in here, nature journal something using letters, as in words, numbers and drawings. And then from there to ask questions, and to ask questions and keep keep track by numbers of the questions you asked in your nature journal, and to show multiple views. So here's what I did over here. I found this plant in my garden. I was interested in this structure. I asked questions about it. Here you can see I'm showing it from different perspectives, including a close-up of these individual units, these individual little tubes. I have some quantification, guessing quantities in terms of numbers of these structures, as well as measurement. And then these are all my questions down here. So that was super fun. But then we got even more in depth into different types of questions in the scientific method. This was super interesting. And just to summarize, luckily I have sketch notes of this, because sketch notes allow me to see a visual hierarchy. And a visual hierarchy should correspond with conceptual hierarchy. So you can see here that Jack summarized it into 3 types of questions. Question number, the first types of questions are questions such as, when do the geese return to my pond? If you ask in your nature journal, when do the geese return to my pond? It's a let's see question. You can literally answer this question by going out and observing over and over and over again. And that's supposed to be Chucky Darwin right there. I know his beard's a little bit too dark or his eyes are too buggy, but that's who that is. And he did this kind of question asking and answering. And most of natural history is based on this. I'm going to eat my chocolate for a little bit while you look at that page, because I want to make sure I can swallow and enjoy this chocolate and speak to you about nature journaling. I hope you have chocolate at home too. It really helps after a long day of nature journaling, because did you know that your brain burns 1/3 of the calories of your entire body or something like that? So if you've been nature journaling all day long, you need to eat some chocolate. I highly recommend it. Well, you should probably eat some dinner too. Okay, so these let's see questions are the first type of question. You can see also the second type here is could it be? So a could it be question would be, what causes the geese to come at that time? What causes the geese to return to the pond on those dates? And then from there, this is a could it be question because you can come up with hypotheses. So he made an important distinction that when you're asking this kind of questions, hypotheses don't help. Hypotheses will actually introduce bias in your ability to make these observations. So for example, if Charles Darwin or any of his contemporaries had hypotheses about questions such as this, and then they went out into the field to make observations, even if they're trying to be objective, those hypotheses can bias the observations. So you don't need hypotheses to ask this kind of question or to answer them. However, for this type of question, you do. And so could it be is you generate hypotheses. These are all examples of hypotheses. Why do the geese come to the pond at that time? Hypothesis number 1 could be because there's more food at that time. Hypothesis C could be because there are fewer predators of baby geese at that time. Hypothesis B could be because it is warmer and they like to breed in the warmer temperatures. And whatever, those are all hypotheses. And then from there, you can choose one and see what you would expect to see as a result. So if it is the predator, there's fewer predators at that time of year. If that is your hypothesis, then you go on to come up with what predictions could you make and what things would disprove your hypothesis. So then you come up with all of those, and this is where you beware of assumptions. Long story short, there's 1/3 type of question, and I could geek out on this probably for 2 hours just on these 2 pages, but I don't want to make this into a 2-hour long YouTube video. So I'm just going to flip through the rest of these. We did a logic game. I won't test you with that logic game because it's very challenging. We talked about metacognition, one of my favorite subjects, and how this applies to nature journaling. You can see here, I'm still trying to sketchnote. I'm experimenting with some different materials that I want to get better at sketchnoting this week, because when you're at a conference for so long, you got to practice what you preach. We're literally learning about how sketching and combining images, words, and numbers helps with cognition. So why would I just be sitting in my chair not applying those tools to learning, especially if I'm going to be sitting in Zoom conferences for 12 hours a day? That is exhausting. That is putting on a lot of cognitive load, as Jack mentioned in the classes today. So by actually using these techniques and trying to sketchnote, it's going to hopefully help me. And then by me repeating this to you all right now, that's going to help me remember too. So I'm actually maybe just making this video for completely selfish reasons. Just kidding. This is the keynote, and I haven't gone back in here yet. I'm going to probably put some of this gel pen around her name here. So you can see I was using this gray Tombow pen, and this is actually one of the palest colors that they have. I'll show you the number. I don't have the link for this. Oh, shoot. I think the number is N95, but it's kind of rubbing off. This is the gray one. And remember, these are water soluble, so you have to be careful if you're nature journaling. But what I like when I'm sketchnoting is it's really quick to make marks with these, and you can make like borders, for example. So for making boxes or making like slightly larger lettering, it's really easy with this Tombow pen. Look at that. And so like her name there, I could do it as well, and then turn that into bubble letters. This is a way faster way to do bubble letters than the way that I normally do bubble letters, where I'm basically just drawing the outline of the letter like that. It's way faster to do this with the brush pen, and then I can come back and do the outline when I have some extra time. So little pro tip right there. I'm trying to keep it simple and have some sort of system to how I use the colors. Otherwise, it's just confusing and random. I haven't been doing this that much lately, so I don't have a system right now, but I'm starting to evolve one as the week goes by. Here's during the keynote, I tried to do this sort of image. I kept coming back to it. I think it was like a 2-hour-long keynote or whatever. I'm still not totally finished, but this is basically showing this concept or this metaphor about how these are standards that are taught in school, and this is part of the next generation science standards. And I wouldn't be able to remember all of these things, I don't think, if I hadn't sketchnoted them. So there's disciplinary core ideas, which are coming from the major disciplines like math, physics, whatever. And then there's the science and engineering practices. Those are like the tools. These are like the main ingredients. And then these are the spices, and that give it the flavor, which is kind of a weird, I don't know if I totally into the metaphor, but this was one of the major metaphors of the talk. And these are the cross-cutting concepts. So the cross-cutting concepts are those ones that I just talked about earlier: patterns, causation, scale, proportion, systems, energy and matter, structure, function, change, stability. And Jack talks about this a lot in his books, and he has a thing on his website about these. Even if you're not a teacher, I recommend kind of understanding these categories. In my video, A Taxonomy of Questions, I talk about how having categories for questions helps you in your nature journaling, because you can think of, oh, I haven't asked any process or function questions. Let me ask some of those. It just gives you a way to approach your nature journaling. And with kids, even if you're not like teaching at some kind of institution, you can, and even if you're homeschooling or even if you're just interacting with your grandchildren, these are really useful ideas to bring into a conversation. So if you're talking about, for example, you're talking about how coffee gets cold faster in certain types of cups, that would be a perfect opportunity to talk about energy, conservation of energy, and stuff like that. So you could bring in, and knowing that is one of these core concepts is super useful. And then this was I started getting, I think, maybe too tentative by using this Tombow pen. And so see, this is a problem unless you definitely plan on going back multiple times on this page. I'm not doing a quick capture. These pages are too pale with this writing for it to be a quick capture. Whereas if I had just gone straight away with even this darker gray, at least I wouldn't have to re-go. Like, this is done. this would require me to kind of go back in here. So think about that when you're nature journaling or sketchnoting. And this was amazing. The keynote speaker talked about research they did with an individual nature journaler and over several years. And they used a lot of quantitative methods and put information into a database and did a lot of analysis on it about how this kid was using cross-cutting concepts because what they're trying to do is research quantitatively the effects of nature journaling so they can help provide tools to educators to get nature journaling to have more credibility in institutions for the most part. This will affect the rest of us as well, even if we don't work in institutions. But the idea that getting some information like this can help it so that nature journaling can be brought to way more kids in school, I think that would be awesome. So that research was amazing. It was very interesting to watch and to hear about. I'm going to switch back to my other camera. And so I'm really excited for the rest of Wild Wonder. It's going to be so amazing. I've bought some tools for some of my classes already that I'm taking with a lot of the other instructors. I'm really trying to take as many classes as possible, but I just want to remind you all, if you are trying to take a lot of classes, remember it can be exhausting. So try to do some things to take care of yourself. Make sure you're getting enough sleep. That's definitely going to help you remember and be able to engage with the material more. I know that's going to be hard for some of you who are in different time zones. It's definitely biased for the Pacific. And also remember, you can watch these as recordings. I know it's not going to be as fun as a recording, but you can watch them that way. And every day around this time, around 8:30 or so, maybe it's going to be a little bit later on some days, I'm going to make a live video talking about the conference. That way, those of you who aren't able to attend the conference, for example, you can just get sort of a recap at the end. And for those of you who are going to the conference and you haven't gotten enough, you can come here to the Nature Journal Show and we could talk about it a little bit more, or you could practice synthesizing some of the ideas. Because like Jack said today, when it comes to memory and forgetting, if you practice the things soon after you learn them, soon after you're exposed to them, and then practice them a few times after that, it helps with your retention so much more. So I hope all of you are inspired to go do some more nature journaling, maybe do some nature journaling homework, or get yourself set up to do some nature journaling tomorrow, whether you're going to the Wild Wonder Conference or not. And if you aren't going to the Wild Wonder Conference, check out my library of videos. I have so many videos about nature journaling that you could probably spend more than a week, 24 hours a day watching them all. Maybe not, but there's hundreds of videos about nature journaling on my channel. All right, hope you're all having a good evening or morning wherever you are. Bye.